Welcome back, guys, to Horizon Zero Dawn, where last episode, heading deeper into the wrecked facility caused by Gaia's self-destruction in search of the Master Override, we found out more about what happened to shape our current world, as Ted Farah made a decision to cut off new life from education, having purged Apollo, and then remotely venting the air from the Alpha's meeting room, killing them. With the override obtained, we talked to Silence in person about his past and why he joined up with Hades before he left the land, leaving his staff to attach the Master Override 2 as our weapon to defeat Hades. Now we stop for an episode to read the Vantage Points text logs, edited to be in order before continuing onwards next time. I'm cool with that. So, we should probably read our Vantage Points and then move over to Meridian. Check out a merchant and move on from there. I mean, I'm just wondering here, game progression, 92.31%. I'm held back in percentage by not having certain shadow items that I should have been able to buy. Oh yeah, and we gotta go get ourselves the armor too. That is very true. I would have actually forgot about that one because I was thinking about all the other things I had to do, and then the thing of like frozen worlds came up again. It's like, nope. After. Stand alone. Separate it. That is what I wish to do. Okay, well, there's our collectibles. What are we looking at? We're looking at the collectibles, the Vantage Points, in order, because they've all got their own written information. So you've got the audio separate, and you've got the text separate too. Hi, Ma. Remember how ecstatic we were when I landed a job here? Aerospace Control Engineer at Faro Automated Solutions, straight out of Stanford U. Saturday, I was tossing a mortarboard. Monday, I'm an employee of the biggest corporation on Earth. Starting wage, 6 times basic. It was a dream come true, yours as much as mine. When I found out I'd landed the gig, I waited until graduation day to tell you in person. You were so proud, you hugged me 5 minutes straight, laughing and crying at the same time, saying over and over, onwards and upwards, the start of great things. I thought so too. It seemed as though nothing bad would ever happen to me, to us ever again. But bad did happen, of course, more bad than I ever knew was possible. And while I can't blame FAS for making you sick, Metallurgy gets the credit for that, I can sure as hell blame Faro for the rest. But let's talk about the end of the world later. Plays a part in the story, of course. If I hadn't found out what was coming, I wouldn't be doing this, leaving these time capsules behind. But the apocalypse isn't the story I want to tell. It's going to be about our family, about us. It's time to get going. I spent enough of my life in the shadow of this place. I've got 11 more Vantage spikes in the trunk of the Sabara I rented, and some pretty good ideas for where to sink them. So let's get the hell away from this place and start sinking. Hi, Ma. You brought me here once to see Baba teach. I didn't know it at the time, but the class was like something out of the 20th century. Stood behind a lectern in a real space lecture hall, raising his unamplified voice to be heard by flesh and blood cadets seated in plastic chairs. This being 45 or 46, our air forces must have already been 60 to 70% automated, but the academy was still old. School, literally. I suppose the quaintness of the setting fit the subject he was teaching, the age of human air power, 1909 to something. Did I read this one already? I feel like I did. The cadets probably thought the question marks were wishful thinking or willful ignorance. From their perspective, the era of the human pilot was already over, but not for Baba. I think I read this one. I can still see the medals he kept in that drawer in the bedroom, the inscriptions in Sanskrit. Touch the sky with glory, you said one meant. Even as a Commodore in the IAF, he kept flying. He still remembered what it was like to sit in a cockpit with his hand on the stick and his finger on the trigger. And that's how he died, June 5th, 2048. At the funeral, some metallurgic international rep said he would be proud he died defending free markets. Even then, I knew that was a lie. He died defending M. Int's claim on a tantalum mine. That's what he died for. And why stop the truth-telling there? Really, he died because M. Int wasn't yet rich enough to afford a fully automated fleet, because it wasn't cost-effective to upgrade a military surplus razor wing with improved electronics warfare gear. He died because human combat pilots were just as obsolete as the crates they put them in and just as expendable. When he spiraled into the jungle, our family crashed with him. Weeks you couldn't get out of bed, and then came the hospital. Me staying with neighbors. Even after you recovered, even when you said all the right things and promised we'd be okay, I didn't believe it. Something had broken between us. I felt like an orphan and nothing seemed to matter anymore. It's how I lived for the next 7 years until it almost killed me. So this would be his overdose then? Hi, Mom. Like me, Star was a problem kid, but he wasn't really smart enough to get into trouble on his own. I didn't tell him my real motivations, just made breaking into the museum and vandalizing it sound like a fun thing to do high on Duster. I was only 13, but my combined interest in tech and drugs had already acquainted me with the basics of hacking security systems. I used a jammer to bypass a window alarm, and then I got to work. I toppled holo exhibits, smashed dioramas, yanked display panels off the walls, and smashed those too. I forgot all about Star until he yelped about flying glass. He was just standing there holding his cheek, staring at me with big scared eyes, whining about how this was crazy and I was going to get us arrested. He was right about the arrest, getting caught was part of my plan, but wrong about the crazy. My one boy orgy of destruction wasn't some kind of drug-soaked psychotic frenzy. It was a calculated attack. Not on the museum, on Wyatt. He started dating Wyatt a few weeks before and I didn't like him. I wanted him gone. When you had him over for dinner, one of the many boring things he droned on about was how he served on the board of the museum and oversaw its technology purchases. Anyway, as I was saying, Star was right to think we were going to get arrested. It went down quick. Star began screaming about how he was burning all over. Next thing I knew, I was face down in a mound of expanding foam. The police bots never even warned us. Compared to Star, I got off easy. I've never been on the business end of a microwave gun, but they say it hurts like hell. I was still picking bits of that foam out of my hair a week later, though. Fines and damages came to 18 months of basic income, so it wasn't just shame that my actions brought down on the family, but financial catastrophe too. Which is why the plan backfired. I didn't push Wyatt away, I handed him a golden opportunity. He stepped in and paid the bill, and it was only after another month or two before we got engaged. It's weird, but lately, I've been dreaming about that night. I keep seeing that first projector I toppled, watching that hologram of Pioneer Woman sleuth sideways and spin to the floor like a bowling pin as the emitter crashed over. A zap and a flicker and she was gone. History shorting out, kind of like now. Wonder if anyone will survive to build museums about us. Are these audio logs? No. The top part is an audio log that gets played whenever we saw the vantage point. The bottom part is text that came alongside it. Hi Mom, looking back it's almost comical how much I detested Wyatt. I hated everything about him. His lumpy face, his bad skin, his always calm voice, his out-of-style suits, and especially his stupid cowboy name. I don't care how badly you wanted to assimilate, there is never any excuse for naming your kid after a gunfighter. I couldn't believe you would replace my Bubba, a decorated combat flyer, with a corporate drone, so I made it as hard for you as I could. I was beyond cruel. I accused you to your face of only being interested in Wyatt for his money. Called you my own mother, a gold digger and worse. Refused to attend the wedding, then got myself arrested the night before just to cinch the point. Took me years to understand the obvious. Of course you married him for his money, for my sake, not yours. Before Wyatt, the job you were working didn't even cover food and rent. You didn't get overtime. You slipped deeper in debt or went hungry. You literally couldn't afford to spend time at home, let alone pay for childcare or rent a nanny bot. Meanwhile, your son was out of control, a truant and a thief. Not even out of junior high and already a drug addict. If you'd only had yourself to worry about, I think you would have politely refused Wyatt's interest. You're no stranger to hardship. Compared to what you went through getting out of Kolkata in 2037, simple poverty probably seemed like a cakewalk. You knew how to survive, but your son didn't. I was headed nowhere at ramming speed. You married Wyatt to save me. The stability and opportunities his money could provide. It wound up working, but not as smoothly as you hoped. Before I could be saved, I had to die first. But that's the story for the amphitheater. Hi, Ma. I don't remember anything about the concert. Here we go. The bands, the music, the crowd. I was too throttled on Skydive and Snake that night to distinguish the thunder of Bashar from the roar of blood in my head. And then I ran across a pusher who was selling Razor Wing for $8 a tab. That's right, Razor Wing, a certain designer stimulant named after a certain late 30s fighter craft that our family had a certain unpleasant association with. So I declined the offer, headed the ominous portent, he did the ominous portent, and got the hell out of there, right? Or maybe what I did was buy 4 tabs and take them all at once. Yeah, I did that. According to the police report, I went berserk and attacked the pusher, then set fire to his stash, and then after the security drones that showed up, I didn't get far. The drones put 50,000 volts through me. It wouldn't have been such a big deal if my heart hadn't already been hammering along at triple time. The shock flat out killed me. The medbots came fast as they could, but the first glitched out, and the second got hung up in the crowd, so I was dead for almost 2 minutes. And even after they revived me, my condition was touch and go on account of all the substances sloshing through my veins. When I came out of the coma, your face was the first thing I saw. You'd been crying, your makeup was smudged, dark lines down your cheeks. When our eyes met, I expected you to start yelling, and weak as I was ready to yell back. Not even a coma could break my defiance. You didn't yell. You quietly asked Wyatt to wait in the hall, then pushed your chair right up to the edge of my bed and took my hand. I wanted to jerk my hand back, but I couldn't. It wasn't the strength of your grip that stopped me, but the warmth of your hand, the gentleness with which you took mine. When you spoke, your voice was quiet, just above a whisper. When I lost your Baba 7 years ago, you were my only reason to go on living. Your gaze lifted to the medical equipment surrounding us, the tubes and blinking lights. You shook your head. Why do you live like no one loves you? Don't you realize that if you die, all my hopes and dreams and all the hopes and dreams of your father die with you? You reached and touched my hair. Like a thundercrack, I broke. Or maybe I was just snapping back together. I lay there, sobbing for what felt like years. The whole time you never took your hand away, and I didn't either. The next day I agreed to go into treatment. Wish I could say I never picked up again, but as we both know, that's not exactly how things turned out. Ma. So this would have been late May or early June. I was only a week or 2 out of rehab, still feeling pretty raw, pretty jangly about sober life. You'd already gone to toe-to-toe with Mr. Garrison, that jerk principal who tried to block my readmission. I was looking at 8 weeks of summer school to make up for all the courses I'd flunked, but I didn't mind. Without drugs, I didn't really know what to do with myself yet, so I welcomed the structure. The metallurgists were playing the Wayfarers, and as usual, Wyatt had box tickets, but this was the first time I'd agreed to go. Hell, it was probably the first time I'd ever agreed to do anything, as a family. In retrospect, I'm surprised Wyatt was willing to bring his hellion stepson to a public event so soon. I'd seen Team Slug it out on holiday before, of course, but seeing it in the real was a whole other thing. The size of the machines, their speed, the way they bash each other to pieces, it was intense. All at once my fascination with tech, which had kind of faded as I'd sunk into the drugs, came roaring back. When Hamid Rahman, the team's chief engineer, stopped by the box at halftime, I was all over him, blasting him with questions like a one-boy press conference. Looking back, it wouldn't surprise me if you took me to that game, hoping to get me excited about tech before I headed into summer school. Was it you wanted me to catch a glimpse of corporate privilege? It was always your dream that I'd end up in engineering or business. Well, there was plenty of engineering on display when Connor 12 scored with an 18-meter rocket jump, and plenty of VPs and even C-levels in the box with us when we cheered the goal. Yeah, it was a setup. You knew what you were doing. Always did. Hi, Ma. It was August. Summer school had wrapped, and I'd aced my courses. So I was heading back to 10th grade with a good head of steam. Flitty flitty. As a reward for my studies and my sobriety, you and Wyatt gave me a Fullerton Labs Astro Prodigy and took me camping to watch the Perseids at their peak. I was amped. Wyatt spent all afternoon struggling with a self-constructing shelter he'd bought for the trip, until finally gave up and built the damn thing manually. Well, the sleeping pods anyway. Or we made a fire and cooked dinner. Must have taken a lot out of him because Wyatt was nodding off at dinner and went to bed soon after. As night fell, we sat and watched the meteors streak across the sky like fingernail scratches, marveling at their abundance, laughing our delight. After an hour or so, you asked me to teach you the constellations, so I launched the Astro Prodigy and played Professor, clouding off about each star group as the drone magnified them. Later, I had it zoom in on the Odyssey, which was still being constructed in orbit back then. It was another year or two before they abandoned it. We'd actually see the robots building it, zipping across the hole like little fireflies, so I jabbered about that. It got me started on yammering about the robots the Pharaoh and other corporations, even Metallurgic, had begun sending up to mine helium-free from Luna and metals from the asteroid belt. The more I spoke about space tech, the more excited I became. But I was getting cold too. Deserts at night are like that, so I sat back down next to you and we huddled under the camp blanket. For a little while we were quiet. I wanted to say what I was thinking, but it felt ridiculous. But then Wyatt snored explosively from inside the shelter and we giggled, and the laughter seemed to make an opening for me to just go ahead and say it. But I, your delinquent son, who'd almost flunked out of high school, who'd nearly died of an OD at a Bashar concert, wanted to be an aerospace engineer and make the sorts of machines we've been talking about. Robots to gather resources in the solar system. Maybe even ones that could travel to other stars and colonize new worlds. He looked up at me and smiled. And that is what you will do. And when you looked up at the night sky and said very plainly, as though it was a simple fact, you will write the story of our family across the stars. School started the next week and I never looked back. I weirdly have a suspicion that this is one of the alphas, right? Ma, I can't believe I just stumbled across this place. As you can see, the audio thing is only 18 seconds long. Do you think that's 18 seconds? I remembered your injury, of course. I just forgot that it happened all the way out here. This was before Wyatt, obviously, when things were really hard for us. I was 12 or 13, already smoking duster every day, and you were working all the time, stuck on the job you convinced Metallurgic to give you after they stiffed us on the death settlement. It must have been terrible, servicing mining robots and dig tunnels for 1.5 basic, but it's how you kept us fed. When the lifter injured you, the foreman said it was your fault, said the telemetry showed human error. Yours. When you told me that the telemetry had been cooked, I didn't believe you. I blamed you for your injury, same as the company. What a great kid I was. I didn't understand the situation at all. Denial of comp was a financial death blow. We were days from living on the street, which is why you pushed your grievance up the ladder, up and up until finally wound up in Wyatt's office. He ordered an investigation, which was the right thing to do. I've always wondered just how dispassionate his decision was. The investigation proved that telemetry had been tampered with and validated your claim, and the implants and cybernetics fixed you up as good as new. By all appearances, it looked like everything they'd gotten broken had been fixed. Hell, another 6 months, and you and Wyatt started seeing each other, so before long, even our poverty was fixed. What we didn't know, of course, was that you'd been poisoned. Lubor 6 exposure from the solvents you used to keep robot joints clear. We were still years away from knowing the long-term effects, but the damage was done. Doom yourself working a shitty job to keep me fed and clothed. I can't even remember a single time I thanked you for it. Screw this place. Hi, Ma. My plan was to go camping here after the Amos 15 launch at Eagle Canyon. I've been working OT for the past 9 months, so I was feeling pretty frazzled and figured I should take a weekend to relax before Crunch started up again. I was setting up my tent when Wyatt's call came through. He said it was an emergency. I called a lift spin vert and made it to Denver General in less than 27 minutes. I was too late. I already slipped into a coma. I didn't understand how that could be, but when I told Wyatt to explain, he just kept choking up, waving me towards the care station. Like, what? So it was a hollow dot that broke the news. How you'd been diagnosed a year earlier, the adverse reactions to gene therapy and polymer replacements, 6 months of mobile dialysis. I couldn't believe you'd kept it all secret from me, even at the height of Crunch. Thank you for the follow, Tenais. I called you once or twice a week, so you just sat there, listened to me enthuse about my latest project or complain about workplace politics, and all the while you were dying? Didn't make sense. I marched back to Wyatt, cornered him, and demanded that he explain. He said you didn't want to distract me. I was doing important work and needed to focus. You know, as though the latest Amos launch and the palladium and rhodium it'd bring back to Earth mattered more than Amar, who was already here. Wyatt kept saying how proud you were of me. He even parroted that onwards and upwards phrase of yours. He said I should get back to work. But that's what you would have wanted, that you stay at the hospital and keep me informed. I didn't go back to work, I called in. Took arguing my way past 2 supervisors, a labyrinthine automated HR menu, a human resources AI, and an anal defensive benefits executive to activate my personal leave, but I did it. And then I sat at your bedside for the next 7 days. I kept thinking of the hospital after my OD at the amphitheater. Kept thinking that if you came out of the coma, I wanted my face to be the first thing you saw. On the 8th day, they pronounced you dead. After the funeral, I went back to work, but I wasn't really there. I kept telling myself to focus. It was okay to be there. It was what you would have wanted after all, onwards and upwards. But my work fell behind. When my supervisor called for me in an emergency review, I told myself to play it cool, accept the criticism and promise to do better. It didn't go like that. I snapped and shouted at him, then broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. 2 minutes and 3 sec drones later, and I was standing outside the fire building, blinking in the sunshine, straightening my bunched up clothes. An alert on my focus indicated that I should go home for the day, then report for a disciplinary review on Monday. But I didn't go home. The very idea had risen up in my mind, already fully formed. I guess I'd already been thinking of doing it for a while. I took a lift spin to Pioneer Park. 10 minutes of asking around and a truth test to show I wasn't a cop was all it took to make a connection. I went home with the drugs, started using and didn't stop. Duster, snake, skydive, overcast, no razor wing at least. I didn't take calls, didn't show up for the disciplinary review on Monday morning. A friend stopped by and hammered the door until I answered it. When he saw what was happening, he staged a one-man intervention. I agreed to go into treatment, but I didn't harbor any illusions. Use of personal leave was bad, but use of psych SA leave? Career suicide. Sure, they couldn't legally fire me for it, but I'd been around FAS long enough to know they'd find a way. My career was over. I thought I was at rock bottom, but I was wrong. Of course, still had a long way to fall. Hi, Ma. I was surprised when FAS sent me out here, and not just because the meeting was going to be held in real space. Yeah, sure, at the King's Peak. I was surprised to discover that anyone at FAS still knew I existed. When I returned to work after treatment, HR informed me I'd been reassigned to the Vantage project. It was exactly the professional death sentence I was expecting. The career equivalent of getting sent into a red zone without an environment suit. Everyone knew Vantage was one of those doomed projects FAS kept around solely for the purpose of assigning dead-enders to them, especially head cases like me who couldn't be summarily fired for fear of parity litigation. Month by month, management would pile losers on a lost cause and cancel the project and lay everyone off. A ship of fools sunk with a single torpedo, aiming on full dismissal of his downsizing. I had nothing better to do, so I spent my time studying the tech. Chip design wasn't my forte, but I knew enough to admire what the engineers had accomplished with the Eternity chip. Stored data was guaranteed to last 50,000 years or more without degradation. As for Vantage itself, the project was little more than a failed marketing plan. The idea was to promote the tech by burying unlocked Eternity chips at scenic locales around the world. Public domain time capsules were where enthusiasts could cache date-locked data. The project got as far as developing the spikes, portable drill applicators to sink the chips, then stalled when Grass Heckle encapsulates came on the market and stole Eternity's thunder. Anyway, I'd been at Vantage 3 weeks when FAS unexpectedly sent me out here for a real space meeting. Me, a dead-ender, working a doomed project dispatched to a high-security FAS R&D site inside King's Peak. Didn't make sense. Security put me in a small conference room and told me to wait. It was downright claustrophobic. Dim lights, bad ventilation, more like an interrogation room from one of those 90s cop vids. What really got my attention was the noises coming through the walls, the non-stop bang and clatter of construction bots, building something deep in the mountain. Something big. The door opened and some doofs wearing FAS badges filed in. I recognized one of them, Brad Andak, a military division replications engineer I met when I first joined the company. But I don't think he recognized me. He stayed at the back of the room the whole time, looking distraught. I was about to ask what the hell was going on when a woman wearing a hijab walked in. She didn't introduce herself, but she didn't have to. It was Samina Abajdi, former lead archivist of the Odyssey, architect of the entire Homer project. Not a global celebrity by any means, but if you grew up following the Odyssey project like I did, you knew her on site. Abajdi sat down and started asking extremely precise questions about the upper range tolerances of Eternity chips. Then she asked me to speculate about the feasibility of various upgrade paths. The interview lasted maybe 10 minutes, whereupon she thanked me for my time and left. Everyone else filed out after her. Security came for me a few minutes later and escorted me to my vert, the whole way back to FAS. I kept trying to figure what had just happened. What was Samina Abadji doing in a classified Pharaoh R&D site, asking me questions about Eternity tech? It didn't add up. By the time I landed, I knew I wasn't going to give up until I'd puzzled it out. Worst that could happen was I'd get fired, and that was going to happen anyway. It took a couple of days and some geo work, but I got a fix on Brad Andak soon enough. He was going to a different bar every night, drinking to the point of blacking out. I shadowed him until I managed to proxy his focus and dupe his net protocols. I didn't find anything strange in his financial records or media patterns, so I was starting to think I'd wasted my time. Then I accessed his Dreambox account and found the journal he'd been keeping the past few weeks. It was all there. How the world would end. My first thought was, well, at least my ma didn't live to see this. My second thought was that nothing mattered anymore, which made it pretty obvious that I should kill myself. Hi, Ma! I came here with a duffel full of drugs after I found out about the plague. I had a plan, a simple one. I figured I'd spend a few days getting high, then OD on Overcast. I guess I was still furious at Wyatt for aiding and abetting your silence. If everything had gone according to plan, my corpse would have laid rotting in the cottage for who knows how long. Would have needed to lease a catastrophic cleaning robots just to scrape me off the floor. A skeletal middle finger from beyond the grave. Things did go to plan. For some reason I went out walking before I got high. I trudged along the shore, thinking of all the times we walked and talked here. How I'd changed over the years, how you'd stayed the same. Whether I was a high schooler jabbering about AP classes or a university student gossiping about my professors, or a FAS engineer pontificating about payload yields, you're always there, always listening, always interested, and always encouraged me, of course, spurring me on, onwards and upwards. But now here I was, an abject failure, standing alone on this beach. Earths all around me. Children chased playbots across the sand, sunbathers basked, families splashed in the water or zipped past on old-timey boats, utterly oblivious to the mechanical terrors that would soon consume them. Brief moments in the sun, doomed to end in horror and amount to nothing. All your love and devotion, all the sacrifices you made to support my success, what had that came to? Failure, and at such cost. We never even got a chance to say goodbye. But even if I hadn't failed, if I'd gone on succeeding, would that have been any better? The whole time I was clawing my way up the ladder at FAS, the company's military division was creating the tech that would end the world. I served the same master. Success was a ladder to nowhere. It just took falling off and landing on the Vantage project to see it. I don't know why, but the irony of that had never hit me until I was standing on this beach. It was only because I'd failed and been assigned to Vantage, an abandoned time capsule project, that I found out the world was ending. Irony? More like a cosmic joke. Why then did the realization hit me like an inspiration? I had access to the tech, I knew I could do it. Sure, in the end, it would probably all just come to nothing like everything else, but 50,000 years or more, whatever data I left behind would still be there. Wouldn't be much, but it wouldn't be nothing either. I went back to the cottage, stashed the drugs, called a lift spin into town. I was going to make an end-of-the-world tour. I figured I might as well do it in style, so I leased a Sabara and rode that to FAS. I'd let myself into the lab, sign out 12 Vantage spikes for testing, put them in the trunk of the Sabara, and the rest is history. It was less than 2 weeks ago. Feels like forever. When I started the tour, I figured I'd come back here and pick up where I left off. Get high, then dead. But the first thing I did when I got back was incinerate the drugs. All 2.5 months of salary worth, so that bridge to oblivion has literally been burned. I don't know how I'm going to die, but it can't be like that. I know how you felt about me and drugs. However it happens, I can at least promise you this. I will die clean. I still have one last spike to sink. One final stop on the Grand Mystery Tour. I'll see you there. Hi, Ma. Last stop after this. I'll have said everything I need to. It was just a routine launch, but for us it might as well have been Apollo 11. It was my first payload, a secret extractor with an upgraded propulsion system I designed. The vehicle was destined for M89282, an asteroid rich in ruthenium and tungsten. Metallurgic claims it happened. Family event, through and through. So there we stood in the open air as night fell and the stars came up, and of course I was thinking of that night years before when we watched the Perseus together and talked and dreamed of this very moment. You were thinking of it too, because when the booster launched as it rose into the sky on its jets of flames, you took my hand and said, "You've written the story of our family across the stars." Even then I knew it wasn't true. The vehicle was headed for a rock, not a star. It was a routine launch, not some voyage of discovery. My heart was too full to quibble. I just smiled and squeezed your hand back. It's the finest moment of my life, you and me, Ma. Onwards and upwards, the start of great things. But after you died and I broke down, the meaning of that night changed. Everything that seemed wonderful seemed to turn rotten and false. It seemed false because it was false. I'd never written anything across the stars. Sure, I'd hoped to work on a project like that, a deep space probe or a colony ship, but it never happened. Now that my career was over, it never would. And then when I found out about the plague, the memory haunted me even worse, because it wasn't just me who failed to write a story across the stars, you see? It was all of us, our entire species. All our innovation, all our tech, all our striving, and it came to zero. I've been looking up at the stars a lot, Ma, and the only story I see written across them is that we are small and insignificant and will soon disappear with hardly a trace left behind. It's a hard story and I don't much like it. So I guess maybe what I've been trying to do these past 12 days is tell a different story. Not a big story, written across the stars, but a tiny one, written across the humble earth of the only world we ever got to know. I have no reason to think that anyone or anything will survive to ever read it, but whether that happens or not, the truth of the story remains that once upon a time on a planet called Earth, there lived a boy named Bashar. He loved his mother very, very much. Goodbye, Ma. I love you. Bashar Mati, son of Amal and Bayas Mati, stepson of Wyatt Mahante. And so we've read it all. interesting to find out. You know, it's a time capsule after someone found out. This guy found out via Brad Andek, via hacking, the world was going to end. And this is what he did with it. 12 spikes placed. A time capsule forever that survived all that was going on. All 12. What you do with the end of the world, eh? Okay, finally time for us to get back on the road and actually play again. So the obvious first location we need to visit, assuming I can fast travel that is back down here, right? Where's the ancient armory? Where was that again? It was in the mountains over here? I think. Off we go then. It's too bad they didn't put it in order. From 1 to 12 on the top thing.
It's cold.
But it was kind of obvious there was going to be some kind of thing. Oh, a damaged file's been repaired. Only the first one of which. Well, before we go on, this popped up, so why not? Sobek Journal, 11/1964-R. Just wrapped inspection of Gaia Prime site. Construction is well underway. Reactor installed. Plans for control room remind me of Starship bridges on those cheesy old SF vids. Living spaces for Alphas already completed. Prefab modules. Fingers crossed we never have to seal ourselves in here. Not that Elysium sounds much better. Spent last week at the BRYCE site, designing ZD project labs, drawing up protocols. The base we're repurposing was huge. Plenty of room for workspaces and residence blocks. The work crew's already set up my office lab. I'm not a fan of the glass wall. Guess Murray's intention was to ensconce me as an all-seeing presence. Opposite effect. Makes me feel watched on display. Tempted to paint it over. Perez recorded his presentation yesterday, suitably bleak, scheduled to record mine Friday. As soon as reception, lounge, holotheaters, and first resident block of ZD side are finished, we'll start processing the candidates being held outside Tucson. 27 already. Extraction teams prioritizing Pac Rim and Aussie candidates. How scared and confused they must be. Snatched off the street, carted across the world, held in cells. Here's hoping they understand once they see the big picture. Gonna catch a few hours sleep here, then fly back to the Zero Dawn site. Harris promised delivery of QB lattices by noon. Expect Mark 1 will take 2 weeks to machine, assemble, and test. I aim to launch Gaia at 0.6T grounding. From there, I'll spin her up past 1T. Sure. Wonder how long it'll take to break the 1.38T record. Me can go hang. Sleep. Sleep. Sure thing. That's my goal. So let's get off. A vendor? A vendor, you say? Do I already own a Shadow Sling? I do indeed. What even counts as Shadow Armor? I'm assuming all of these are, but I don't know. I mean, a Grazer Heart. I don't have one. Why not just buy it? These purple things, a Bellowback Heart. Strider Heart. We own that one. And I don't have a Shellwalker Heart. That's interesting. Is there really not like a buy multiple? That would be handy. Switch sort order. That's all there is. Just hold X to buy. And watch my stuff start to tick away, but... Or why, yes please. That should be all the fast travel points I ever need. Great success. Got some wire. Wait, is it up here or down there? Well, let's obtain ourselves our special armor. We've had enough reading between now and our game's finish. However, we do actually have to go around. This poor rabbit that's trying to get away. It seems to be rabbit paradise. I mean, not rabbit paradise if I interject, but... I'll make my own way through.